Springboks and Owen Doyle challenge World Rugby's law changes. Are Southern Hemisphere coaches threatening consensus? Rugby's lawmaking process has entered one of its most contentious periods in recent memory, as debates surrounding rule amendments and trial protocols intensify ahead of the 2027 Rugby World Cup. At the center of the controversy are the Springboks coaching staff, led by head coach Rassie Erasmus and former Test referee Owen Doyle, who has voiced strong support for their skepticism regarding both the current laws and the new trial amendments proposed by World Rugby. While the governing body is moving to implement law changes in elite competitions, including the Super Rugby Pacific tournament this year, critics argue that these modifications may be premature, ill-considered, or damaging to the fabric of the game. Erasmus and the shape of the game special recently. Erasmus, alongside his coaching team, participated in what has become a focal point for rugby law discussions. Their own Shape of the Game conference, produced as a 3-part YouTube series. The episodes offered a rare insight into the Springboks' internal analysis of the laws, law amendments, and how these might impact elite rugby. The series explored the current state of rugby, the ongoing challenges in rule interpretation, and the practical implications of proposed amendments, many of which are currently being trialed in Super Rugby Pacific. Erasmus and his assistants did not shy away from expressing skepticism about the trials, suggesting that some changes might have unintended consequences that could undermine the integrity of the sport. The conference itself was widely praised for its transparency and educational value, giving fans, players, and analysts alike a front-row seat to the thought processes of one of the world's most respected coaching teams. But beyond the insights, it also highlighted a growing rift between coaches, unions, and governing bodies on how best to implement change. The key Super Rugby law amendment Super Rugby Pacific has trialed a number of law changes designed to improve flow, reduce stoppages, and reward attacking rugby. Among the most notable amendments are 1. No scrums for accidental offsides or delaying the playing of the ball, designed to keep the ball moving and reduce stoppages. 2. Allowance for teams to pass back into their own half before executing a 50-22 kick, creating tactical flexibility and encouraging more structured play from deep positions. 3. Other minor adjustments aimed at faster gameplay, simplified refereeing interpretations, and better continuity. Some of these trials, should they prove successful, may be permanently incorporated into the World Rugby lawbook. However, Erasmus and Doyle remain cautious, warning that the practical effects of rule changes are often difficult to predict and unintended consequences may outweigh perceived benefits. Owen Doyle supports Erasmus' position. Owen Doyle, a respected former international referee and rugby analyst, has publicly sided with Erasmus' critique. Writing in the Irish Times, Doyle emphasized that the Springboks' concerns are both valid and essential to the lawmaking process. Doyle observed that the current system of trialing laws at elite competitions is intended to gather empirical data on impact, not merely to test theory in isolation. He praised Erasmus and his assistant Jaco Peyper, a former international referee and current advisor to South African rugby, for pointing out that trialing must be thorough and unbiased, and must consider all consequences, including those that are unforeseen. The new World Rugby chair, Australian Brett Robinson, is keen to reach agreement on new law trials with a view to having them in place for the World Cup, Doyle wrote. South Africa head coach Rassie Erasmus and Jaco Peyper have declared their opposition to this idea, as has been reported recently. Overall, I agree with their position, which points to the present process of trialing as being key to fully understanding all the consequences of change, particularly those which are of the unintended variety. This endorsement gives additional weight to Erasmus' arguments and highlights a growing frustration among Southern Hemisphere rugby stakeholders with what some perceive as a rushed approach to global law changes. That diverging views across hemispheres. The division over law amendments is far from new. Rugby has traditionally been split along hemispheric lines when it comes to law interpretation and implementation. Australia and New Zealand have typically favored faster, more free-flowing rugby and have often supported innovative trials to encourage attacking play. European nations, including France, Italy, and the British Isles, have historically preferred a more structured, conservative approach, valuing set-piece integrity and player welfare over experimental changes. South Africa, historically somewhere in between, has recently leaned more conservatively, reflecting the Springboks' focus on physicality, discipline, and tactical precision. Doyle believes that Erasmus and his staff could now represent the biggest obstacle to World Rugby achieving global consensus, particularly if the Springboks stick firmly to their position. It seems Brett Robinson does not have full support in the Southern Hemisphere, Doyle wrote. If South Africa stick to their guns, it could prove a major stumbling block. This observation underscores a central tension in the governance of rugby. How to reconcile differing regional philosophies with the goal of standardized global rules that France takes a hard line to European opposition is exemplified by France. With top 14 stadiums routinely filled to capacity and a league known for its strategic and structured play, French officials have expressed serious reservations about certain law trials. Among the areas of contention is the 20-minute red card replacement law, which allows teams to bring on a substitute after a player has been sent off for 20 minutes. French rugby authorities argue that the rule is unsuitable for elite international competition, claiming it diminishes the deterrent effect of red cards and could encourage players to push boundaries in dangerous ways. This law is not fit for purpose, Doyle wrote, reflecting French criticism. Everything but the most serious offenses qualify for it, which risks undermining the integrity of discipline in the game. France's opposition mirrors the Springboks' broader skepticism. Both unions insist that laws must reflect the unique characteristics of rugby, preserve players' safety, and align with the charter of the game. That Erasmus, defender of the game Rassie Erasmus, alongside Jaco Peyper, has consistently argued that while innovation is important, it must be balanced with caution. The Shape of the Game series demonstrated Erasmus' meticulous approach. Rather than simply criticizing change, he provided evidence-based assessments of each trial, highlighting areas where unintended consequences could arise. For example, while removing scrums for accidental offsides may speed up the game, Erasmus warns that it could erode the authority of referees and reduce accountability for players, ultimately affecting discipline at the highest level. Similarly, allowing the 50-22 kick to be executed from a pass back into one's own half could shift tactical dynamics in unexpected ways, favoring teams with greater tactical sophistication while penalizing others. Erasmus' approach is not obstructionist, but measured. He seeks to ensure that rule changes enhance the game without compromising fairness or safety. Doyle on the importance of rigorous trials. Trialing laws without fully considering unintended consequences risks introducing problems that cannot be easily reversed, he wrote. We must understand the full spectrum of outcomes, particularly those which are subtle but significant, before global implementation. Doyle also warned against rushing trials to coincide with major competitions, such as the Rugby World Cup. Doing so could force teams, referees, and players to adapt too quickly, potentially affecting performance, safety, and the spectacle of the game itself. He points out that successful law changes require iterative evaluation, ongoing communication with stakeholders, and a willingness to adjust or reverse changes if evidence suggests negative outcomes. Doyle notes, it seems Brett Robinson does not have full support in the Southern Hemisphere, and if South Africa sticks to their guns, it could prove a major stumbling block. Aligning these perspectives is crucial if rugby is to maintain consistent, enforceable laws globally. This divergence demonstrates that rugby governance remains a complex balancing act between innovation, safety, tradition, and competitive equity. The risk of ignoring criticism if World Rugby ignores the criticisms raised by Erasmus, Peyper, and others. Doyle warns that it could undermine confidence in the lawmaking process. Coaches, referees, and players may feel disempowered or disconnected, reducing buy-in and compliance with new regulations.